One thing I've learned, if you don't hold their feet to the fire, everybody gets burned.
Hold on. Before you start waving around that freedom of speech thing, when you're in a crowded movie theater and you scream fire, you better be able to smell smoke. You come on this radio show and you start saying incandescent things like that, you better have more behind you, pal, than just your thumb. I've been listening to talk radio for years, and one thing I just can't stand is when the host has to, push his way on the people, beat the callers into his way of thinking, extending his ego, or when the callers call in and say something so outrageous and the host lets it go unchallenged. The sign you're on the road to truth is the lack of contradiction. You want to find truth, you just don't simply believe somebody because of their authority or their degree, or you listen to what they say, you test it against reality, and you hold their feet to the fire. All right, back live. Feet to the Fire. I'm your host, James Arthur Janczyk, or Jancic, however. Black Knight of Talk Radio. We are live. Got Shane in the chat room already. Welcome to the Grand Delusion. I've used that as a bumper at times, back when they let you, before they beat you and put you in prison for copyright violations. It was funner. It was much more fun years ago doing the show, 4-hour show, multiple guests, all kinds of bumpers tied into the topics, kind of in a Art Bell-esque type of deal. It was, I don't know, it was much more fun on it, but they have beat you out, beat you into submission for how dare you use copyrighted material, even though no money exchanges. But anyway. We're live. Now, I've been doing some thinking. There's a lot of people talking about stuff going on in the world. And one of the things that I thought I could do, not that I had the answers or I'm some kind of a special whatever, but I thought I could offer my kind of my take on analysis on things. Because one of the things I have found in my life, perhaps a gift of God. I remember one time when I kneeled down and asked for the gift of prophecy back when I was in the Fundamental Baptist Church after reading what Paul asked about gifts of prophecy. And we all think the gift of prophecy, or at least I did, was, being able to tell the future or whatever. And I think really the prophecy is truth. So it's not about telling the truth about the future, which it could, but being able to recognize truth in the circumstances or in history or whatever. And in that, I think I did get a blessing because I spent those early times in Bible study and found a lot of problems I saw with the doctrines of the various churches, and eventually going out of that church on my own. Along the way comes Art Bell. I get like this show and all the stuff, and then he retires. I end up starting Feet to the Fire. We talked a lot about stuff, everything from aliens to Planet X to everything. And over time, it seems to have focused on finding truth, wherever it may be, or reality, or type whatever it be. And so during these times, with a lot of crap, a lot of BS being given by all parties, I have endeavored to give my 2 cents on what I think is going on based on perhaps intuition as a guide, but also lack of contradiction being the more, the more scientific, if you want to use it, the Socratesian type of deal. And so that's where that's what I've been doing, and I have been doing. But it was kind of interesting. My personal joy is in going through and applying this understanding of biblical, in particular Jesus' teachings, forward. And that's what got me through my dark night of the soul, was Jesus' words were very true. When I used the same techniques and developed even better ones of understanding, looking up Greek and Hebrew, it came that Jesus' words are for life, for living in life, is the key to success on the planet. Not success money, but not unsuccess money. Just God on earth, where we are to make a choice. We're having a limited field here of energy to be able to choose. Do I want to work together as a team for the benefit of each other, or do I want to be selfish about it and use everybody for myself? That's the choices. That's it. A or B. There's no A in the middle. It's A or B. And if you choose toward A, you will go toward A over time. When you choose B and continue on that path, you will get better toward B or worse toward A, whatever A and B is. And so my personal thing is to try and get through all the religious dogma and distill it down to what we need right now. Now, not how many head of angels can fit on the head of a pin, not trying to decode the book of Revelations and predict what this, that, and then is going to happen, because all of that stuff is not applicable to what we need to know right now. I maintain that a lot of Revelation and other prophecies will become evident as we look backward. 2020 in hindsight. Prophecy is near worthless in foresight for if you want to look at them for specific things. But if you want to get the principles now that will help you get through times, now you're talking my book. And so I could go through and all the things that are going on with the riots and the protests and the various politicians coming out and going against Trump, who have been somewhat quiet or, they're coming out vocal. You have companies now who are swearing allegiance to Black Lives Matter. And just for the tally books, no lives matter. That's what it is when it comes down to the satanic. And, if you use the word satanic, well, I don't believe in the Bible and God and all that stuff, and you're saying it's satanic. Well, that's just the word I use. I mean, if you look at this source of the word Satan, you have Saturn, you have reptilian traits given to him, and then you bring in the reptilians from Orion and all this stuff. All of those details are people filling in the blanks that the data is not there. And so this is where you get into arguments. You're arguing over people filling in the blanks, but we don't have enough information to fill in the blanks. And, of course, you waste time, which is the goal. If you can't stop you from reading the stuff, trip you up while reading the stuff, get you off in black holes, rabbit holes, side issues and arguments, which religion is real, the Catholic or Orthodox or Reformation, the Gnostics, argue. Satan loves it. Lots of excellent, my man. Just keep on arguing about all that stuff instead of getting to the meat and potatoes, which is very simple. And it's very simple to apply. It's hard to live by when you want to try and move the bottom line to where you want it to be. Well, I want this to be true, so I got to wiggle around stuff and force and use other arguments and drop issues and forget this and that so it doesn't show up to get where we're going. I've done a lot on Facebook where I've seen posts, some where I think are very flawed, and I've commented in a Socratesian method of pointing out the problems. And there's one problem with that. I mean, they killed Socrates because they got tired of hearing him tear up all their stuff. No, it's wrong there. No, it's wrong there. No, you forgot about this here. That's wrong there. And they're like, shut up. We want to have our fantasies. We want to live in our bubbles and not need someone around with a pin poking them. And so he ended up had to drink the poison. So throughout my life, I've been told a lot that I'm a downer. I spoil things. It's like I went through various religious and spiritual disciplines looking for answers, hoping that the next one I found had the answers. All of them did not, were not correct, but they all had pieces, Easter eggs, as I picked up and put in my basket. And I came to a conclusion a while ago that nobody is correct, but everybody has a piece of the puzzle, even if the person's piece is an anti-piece. In other words, yeah, I learned a lot from that guy. I learned what not to do. That's still a positive learning experience. So that's what I do. I mean, what I do is finding truth through finding the lack of contradiction. It is about finding truth, finding reality, finding stability by weeding out the instability, the in-truth. And what you have left, it's like if you have a lump of rock and you heat up the rock and you burn off the impurities, and now you have pure gold. Now, people in that crucible aren't exactly having a fun time. But the result of that is gold. And that's what we're seeking for. What the world will have you seek is fool's gold, which is worthless. And in a time when you need to have the qualities of the gold, it fails miserably. This is what's going on in the world now. So I go through and I don't want to sit now and take this time to go through what I've already written on Facebook or what have you. And I know people won't go to Facebook, and that's fine. I understand. But I've talked a lot of the stuff going on. A couple of things like to say that they say Floyd is still alive. He's a crisis actor, and he's alive somewhere. And the problem with all of that stuff is it's very easy to have a major flaw and crack up. I mean, all of a sudden, if Floyd is found alive, holy Moses, the entire planet would shake. And it would be ultimate foolishness to try and do that. They could tell him, hey, we're going to do this for you. We're going to have this happen, whatever. They shoot him up with drugs. They have the cop kneels on him. He ends up dying. The cop either knew or didn't know he was going to die. All that stuff doesn't matter. It's much easier if you're going to plan something like that you just kill the people. And the cop can't be in on it because otherwise he'll say something. That wasn't a cop. It was an actor and all this stuff. There's too much of a risk to be caught on that. And it's so much easier just to kill your... Look at Oswald. There's a classic example. I don't know anybody who thinks Oswald's a soul killer. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there, but... So what do you do with him? You have him killed. End of story. So that's a classic example of how things are done. So, I mean, when I get through a lot of this, that's not really him. They look at the officers, got a different picture. I know, just for example, my own experiences when I film something on my phone, even though it's an HD phone and all this stuff, the optics are off and make things wider or longer just because they're trying to cover more or less. I mean, there's 100 reasons that things could not be how they are that don't need to have conspiracy. You're talking about, Jeffrey Epstein is alive and well and living in Israel with surgery and all that. I can't say he's not, but it's simpler just to kill him. If he didn't kill himself, wouldn't it be simpler just to kill him? I mean, it's a lot simpler than the whole go, well, we had to get him out because he knew too many people. And, well, if he's dead, he doesn't know anybody. So anyway, I don't want to get into that, but this is my kind of thing when I go through this stuff. There's like this. It's like a club or it's fun. Q's another one full of. Now, where's the plan now about all this happening? Yeah, sit back with the popcorn. What, and watch the riots? I don't want to. Good can come of it, even though good can come out of everything. All right, so let me just leave it that way. So what I do want to talk about, if I could, now that I've wasted 15 minutes already, and most people have already turned off, is what I'm trying to, in fact, I was talking with my sister, and God bless her. She's a wonderful person. And I've been talking about, there's 1,900 people are subscribers on here, and, some of my videos are have 90 views. And not that I want numbers, but maybe I'm doing something wrong and whatever. And she said it was a good point. I'm glad she did. She says, your show is grim. It has grim information, and sometimes people just can't take the grimness. And I was kind of shocked by that. Not by her saying it, not by anything about it, but the reality of it. That's true. That was a true statement. And I went it is grim. Hey, let's tune in and listen to Feet to the Fire and learn about the, Aztec pyramids. And no, let's find out about all the things that's crap and wrong. And all the things all the hope that I have is being ripped out from underneath me. And I'm like, wow, yeah, And again, it's not that I'm glad she said that, because it's true. In this time, but in this time, the grim words of truth can pare you down to the solid earth and prepare you for what may be coming, or what is real anyway. And if you have your hopes in falsity, or your hopes in a misunderstanding, or you're hiding because it's too hard, it's too much for me to think about, I got to just be in this fantasy. When the reality does hit, it's devastating. And of course, that's what Satan wants. He wants you to believe in stuff that is not true. So when truth happens, you're caught in the middle of error, in the middle of, it's like on a cliff. Yeah, the cliff is, you got another 2 miles for the cliff. And then, as you go 10 feet, you step off the cliff. That shock is you weren't prepared for the real length of the cliff. And sometimes the reality is not a big deal. Oh, I was supposed to go on Saturday, and here it's on Friday. Okay, well, I'll just go tomorrow. Or, oh, I thought it was Friday. All right, well, it's okay. We'll make it for next week sometime. Sometimes it's not a big deal when you don't have the reality right. And sometimes it's utterly devastating, life and death. So I want to take this opportunity here, kind of to get into some of the stuff biblically, but not as a preacher, not as a Bible teacher, not as a proselytizer. I'm not looking for believers or converts. I mean, my whole point of bringing this up is that for those who are Christian or have Christian leanings anyway, what is going on now is part of a formula which has happened many times throughout the past. Actually, it's true for anybody, Christian or not, but for those who give credence to the Bible, in particular Jesus' teachings, which I think is Jesus' teachings is a refresher, update, clarifying things that have been written in, contaminating over time. And so Jesus comes in and, gets down to the meat, rips off a lot of peripheral stuff and gets down to it. So one of the things that's happening now is the Q phenomenon. We're going to sit back and it's all planned and it's all working and it's all great. You have your popcorn. And every time, I will say, every time Trump gets caught, put against the wall, he bounces back. It's almost like there's a blessing on him for maybe his stance he took. a pro-life, pro-Christian stance, pro-truth, pro-American in the principle of the Constitution, in what it stands for, which is the principle, not the country per se. Especially, believe me, the American country's got some problems over the years, but at least in a constitutional sense, I don't know. But every time they throw something against them, it seems to come back. But each time it gets worse. But what is noticed each time is the enemies become more obvious. They step out into a brighter light and make themselves more known. All falsities and pretexts are removed, and they're standing blatantly naked as supporting an evil stance. So, I maintain, for those who've listened to the show, that we're in a time of revelation and a time of redemption, meaning that people who could step out into the light from past stuff, make a stand for God, and follow the principles, and they can actually be very valuable right now and could work off, quote unquote, it's a phrase, cover a lot of sin or whatever, working off. And so people will be coming forward from inside the dark side, and they could do great help for good and truth. And that'll be laid on their side. But anyway, let me get to this stuff. Matthew 24. I'm going to put the links up for this. But I think things are going to get worse before they get better. And if we're not the end times and it's some kind of a cycle, which it could be, because again, Bible talks about things that happen in cycles. It's a formula. If people return back to godliness and all that, the end can be stayed for another cycle. So but it'll happen again because sin comes back and people get lazy and it happens again. So I am not standing here saying that this is the official end times, but it's in an end time cycle that has cycled before. And when you look into the Old Testament and look at Old Testament prophecies and histories, a lot of those prophecies may have already happened, but that formula is contained in that can be pushed forward because it'll happen again. Some of the details will be different. Principles will be the same, though, which is why I never push these prophecies for details, because it is going to be slightly different each cycle. They asked Jesus, when will these things happen? Because he talked about various events happening at the time. The temple would be taken down and all this stuff. Those would be details in that cycle. Okay. But then he answers both specifically to them, but also here is the formula for the end cycles. I mean, you listen to Less Visible. He talks about the Kali Yuga, which was dark time. Then they have the Golden Age, and you got all these cycles in different religions. I mean, they all realize these cycles. They made this name them differently, but the cycles are there. See that no one misleads you, for many will come in my name, saying I am the Christ, which could mean they come in Jesus' name and say Jesus is the Christ, or they could claim that they're the Christ. That could be the deal. And many will mislead, and they will mislead many. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened. Key words, see that you are not frightened. For these things must take place, but that is not yet the end. For nation will rise against nation. In other words, nationality will rise against nationality. Kingdoms or countries will rise against countries. And in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. But all these things are merely the beginning of the birth pangs. These are the signs that we're going into an end time cycle. If I can come up with a Christian phrase for a Kali Yuga. Then they will deliver you to tribulation and will kill you. You just got done saying, no, don't frighten, because these things, they will kill you. You will be hated by nations because of my name, referring to Jesus. And boy, isn't that true? I never knew how they were going to get so pissed at Christians nowadays in the current times. And then all of a sudden, that's like, 5-6 years, it became very obvious. You will be killed in the nation you hated by all nations because of my name. At that time, many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. Have you been seeing people bowing down lately? Everything from people who are afraid to police, politicians, and they're bowing down. And it's not they're not bowing down to Black Lives Matter. It's not that they're the Black Lives, not like the people involved in this are actually going to get equality and stop racism. They're just a tool. Your phrase, useless idiots, they're a tool to the neo-Maoists in the American version of the culture revolution. And so what these people are really bowing down to is the new regime. And you see the pictures of the politicians as they bow down. They're not bowing down in some kind of honor and for those who have fallen violence from racism and restraints from liberty. They're bowing down because they know these guys represent the new regime, the neo-Maoists that are coming in. Lawlessness will increase. Many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. Oh, gosh, we see that left and right. You have kids putting videos about yelling and hating their parents because they're white privilege. Many will fall away and betray. Many false prophets. Remember, false truth sayers. False people claiming truth will arise and leave many. We're saying if you're looking at prophets and just meaning liars, false prophets, those in a position of telling truth who tell lies would be a false prophet. Mainstream media, capital letters, is the worst. Well, even worse than the politicians. The mainstream media is supposed to be the ones keep an eye on the politicians. So, the false prophets in my book are the mainstream media, along with any other people who sign on to this neo-Maoist revolution. And it's not because it's political. They're atheistic. They are anti-Christian. They are anti-God. They're defacing and burning churches. So it's not that I'm saying this because it's a politicious? I like that word, politicious situation. It isn't. It's because it's the neo-Maoist, atheistic, oppression, beating, sacrificing, child trafficking, forcing, all that stuff is coming along with this. Because lawlessness has increased, most people love will grow cold, turning away, not getting involved, hiding in their house. I don't want to get involved. Sure, you want to have post-abortion. Okay, fine, just leave me alone. Fourth birth abortion, you want to. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. Now, I want to stress the word saved in there. I did a word study when I was still teaching adult Sunday school. Many times the word appears in the English Bible, saved, and people assume it means salvation, i.e. getting out of hell. And many, many of the times, the word, in fact, I think the primary use of the word, and it's only metaphorically used spiritually, the primary use of the word is they will be saved in a physical, alive sense. They will be saved from the death and destruction. Now that is where the hope comes in. But the one who endures, sticks with the principles, sticks with righteousness and God, Jesus, principles, and all that stuff will be saved. A lot of people are going to avoid destruction because of them making a stand, and there's a blessing involved. Remember I mentioned about Trump. He made a lot of principled Christian godly stances, and there's blessings and protections that come involved with him. It also says earlier, though, that you will be killed. They will kill you, and you will be hated. All right, so, but for my thing is I'm going to look at this. If you say do these principles and go along, you'll be spared. Maybe the word spared is a better. So there is hope for those. There are those who are destined, and the way Paul talks about it in other apostles, if you're blessed to suffer. I got a bunch of people coming in the chat room. Hi. If you're blessed to be able to suffer, if you can make a stand, it's a blessing to you to make the stand, and God will reward you for that. If you aren't able to make that stand, God may spare you of that out of mercy. And so what you want to do is the best you could do, because even though these times may be very unpleasant, they are huge, making a huge stand for eternity. Those who make a stand now will have their spiritual growth and thus their afterlife participation huge. Right? Of course, it's all grace that allows us to be able to make that stand. But it's like someone, I thought, I'm not a big movie fan for principles, but in the Raiders of the Lost Ark series where they had the chalice, the Last Supper, I thought one of the little scenes was a great aspect of faith when Indiana Jones had to go walk across this cavern to get the chalice to save his father. And time was running out, and he had no choice. And he looked down, and he saw this deep cavern. But in the manual, in the guide that says how to get across, it said him how to do it. So he's got nothing left but to try in the faith that in the hope that this guide is true. And he reaches out, he stands out just like he did, and he once and stands, and he hits solid ground in what looks like it's straight in the air, and then realize it was a trick of the eye, because of the grain of the rocks that you couldn't see, but there was a walkway going across. And I thought, what a great a way to describe what faith is. When you're going through this stuff and it looks like it's going to be the end, you make a stand for God, for righteousness. Even if you defend like your house or your neighbor against rioters or whatever, and you may kill people. You may get killed, but you make that stand for them, and that is huge spiritually. Anytime that you're willing to give your life for a friend, it's the greatest thing you can do. Or risk your life. It doesn't have to be give, but when you do these things, you don't really know that you're going to live or die. But you do it because it's right, and you put your hand in God. And if you do die, you die doing the right thing, and there's still a spiritual blessing. Always doing for the right thing. Anyway, I'm getting, but because of lawlessness is endured, most people grow cold, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. The gospel of the kingdom. Remember, every time you see the word gospel, think of the word good news, because we've lost what the gospel was. We have people telling us what the gospel was, and they add all kinds of stuff to it. And I'll leave that for another show, but the gospel of the kingdom shall be preached to the whole world. And actually, if you look in the Greek behind it, the inhabited earth. So the gospel that preached to the inhabited earth as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Now these things are done in like layers, right? So it's like, okay, then when he comes after that, it's going back into the story, and it says, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, parentheses, let the reader understand, on parentheses, which my guess is probably the copier. I'll put that in there, but that's whatever. Then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. There you go. There's a application to the present while there's still the principle. Whoever's on a housetop must not go in and get his things that are in the house. Whoever's in the field must not turn back. That's because the time frame is time to get out of the way. Sometimes you make a stand, and then there's a time to go. That great philosopher, Kenny Rogers, you got to know when to hold them, fold them, walk away, and run. Woe unto those who pregnant during and nursing in those days, but pray your flight will be not in the winter or on Sabbath. There will be a great tribulation, such that has not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, or will ever. What a mouthful of grim words, right? unless those days had been cut short, no flesh would have been saved. No living material would have been saved. But for the sake of those chosen for those days, it'll be cut short. There's people on this planet now that have been chosen, and because of their intercession or their chosenness, God will intervene and he will shorten the days, which means is if it would let the play out to its end, no flesh would be alive, but it's not going to let it play out to the end. That's why. False Christ will arise and will show great signs and wonders so as to mislead, even possibly those who are chosen. I think of Project Bluebeam and others come to mind of showing things, or perhaps space aliens, or aliens that are actually multidimensional, that demons get, or whatever. But I've told you in advance, so if they say to you, behold, he is in the wilderness, do not go there. Behold, he is in another inner room. That could be a tech to lead you. Hey, Jesus is here, or some great prophet is here, come here, and then you end up getting kidnapped. Do not believe them. And this is nice as the lightning comes from the east and flashes even to the west, so shall the coming of man be. Now this next line, wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. I'm going to go like, don't know. Now there's a bunch of other stuff here. Maybe I'll say this last piece. Immediately after the tribulation of days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give up its light. The stars will fall from the sky. The powers of the heavens will be shaken. And then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky. Blue beam people kind of watch for that, because we'll know when the real deal is here. He will send forth his angels with a great trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other. Now, if you want to check into a vision that I had, and I talked about, I saw an example of what I saw a vision of this happening. I'm not saying this is predictive, but let me go then. Let me go back here, and it says, when the abomination of desolation, which is spoke through prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Well, I went back and I looked into the abomination of desolation. I mean, Jesus quoted that phrase, which is a very, it's a phrase that's not found like in talking. Hey, could you go over there and get me some of that abomination of desolation? Bring it over here. It's a very specific word. He quoted it specifically. So I went back and I'm going to give you just cursory stuff from this because, again, multiple applications applied at the time, the principle that applies elsewhere in time. But it doesn't, you'll feel, you kind of sense, and it's not a feeling like it doesn't, it may be grim in words. It doesn't feel good, but it feels right. It feels true. And I felt unfortunate truths. It was smelling saddened by him, but I knew it was true. So, forces, we're talking about an individual in time. Again, principles apply across the cycle. They're talking about individuals. And so I'm just going to take it from this part, and it could apply to forces now. Forces from him will arise, desecrate the sanctuary fortress, like burning churches, and do away with the regular sacrifice. And we could say regular rituals, like going to church, Holy Communion. Those are stopped because of COVID. And they will set up the abomination of desolation. Right? So that's like this word. And by going through other things after it kind of gives you an idea of the principle of it, if not, you don't know exactly what it is. By smooth words, he will turn to God. He will turn to godliness those people who act wickedly toward the covenant. By smooth words, he will turn people to godlessness, those who act wickedly toward a covenant. But these people who know their God will display strength and take action. There we go again with the words of Jesus. Those who have insight among the people will give understanding to many. Yet they will fall by the sword and flame, by captivity and by plunder for many days. And when they fall, they will be granted a little help, and many will join with them in hypocrisy. I think those are two separate statements because it's combined by and. They will be given help, and people will join them in hypocrisy. Some of those who have insight Some of those who have insight will fall in order to refine, purge, and make them pure until the end time, because it is still to come at the appointed time. Again, the official end cycle is going to happen at some point. Then the king will do as he pleases, and he will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will speak monstrous things against the God of gods. He will prosper until the indignation is finished, for that which is decreed will be done. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers, and for no desire of women, nor will he show regard for any other god. He will magnify himself above them all. But instead, he will honor the God of fortresses, power, a God whom his fathers did not know. And we can understand that technology is probably what's referring to. He will honor the God of technology, something that the forefathers didn't know about. He will honor him with gold, silver, and costly stones and treasures. He will spend a lot of money on technology. He will take action against the strongest of fortresses with the help of a foreign god. Could that be the so-called alien or the demons? He will give great honor to those who acknowledge him. He will cause them to rule over many. He will parcel out land for a price. Now it's going to talk about, I think this next part kind of goes more into the prince of the time at that moment. But as Daniel was listening to all these prophecy stuff, he wrote this stuff down, and he said, "My Lord, when will the outcome of these events?" He said, "Go your way, Daniel, for these words are concealed and sealed up until end times. Many will be purged, purified, and refined, but the wicked will act wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but those who have insight will understand. From the time that the regular sacrifice or rituals are abolished and the abomination of desolation is set up, there'll be 1,290 days. How blessed is he who keeps waiting and attains the 1,335 days." Well, I happen to look that up. It's about 3.5 years. So, interesting. We're coming up to, right now we're at the 3.5 year mark of the Trump presidency, for what that would be worth. But as for you, go your way and to the end, then you will enter rest and rise again for your allotted portion at the end of the age. So, it comes across with Ezekiel is supposed to be coming back, at the end times. Who knows? Again. Now, interesting enough, going to Revelation, which is a real tricky book, just like Daniel and Ezekiel, where it's going to be in, it's going to be kind of encoded, let's say. It'll say, and I will grant authority to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, which is, I did that math too. I had left it on my phone. It's about 3 3.75 years, 3.5, depending on the months, how you want to do it. So that's kind of interesting there. He'll give the 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth, which should be humble. One might say Trump is everything but humble, but These are the two, and I don't know, I'm not saying he's one of the two witnesses, but it's very interesting later on. He's the first person that I thought could possibly lead to this based on how many people hate him. These are the two hours. If anyone wants to harm them, fire flows out of their mouth and devours their enemies. And I think talking about Trump's tweeting. And if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this way. Now, I referred to the boomerang effect, right? They go after Trump, want to do something to his principles, and it boomerangs back and hits them. So it's kind of interesting. They have the power to shut up the sky so that it will not rain during the days of the prophesying, and they will have power over the waters to turn into blood and strike the earth with every plague as they desire. Well, I don't know. Perhaps you could talk about if you want to try apply that to now, it could be methods of war. But when they finish their testimony, the beast that comes out of the abyss will make war with them and overcome them and kill them. And their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city, which is mystically called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. Now, again, these things, I think Revelation applied both to the time frame they said it, again, but it's a cycle, right? So principles of these cycles can be used in other end-time cycles. So a lot of people look at the new the new Babylon as being New York, being the center of commerce. So again, cycles, not exact, principles overlay. If you get too exact, then you get lost. From those from the peoples and tribes and tongues and nations will look on their dead bodies for 3.5 days and will not permit their dead bodies to lay in a tomb. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice over them and celebrate. They will send gifts to one another because the two prophets tormented those who dwell on the earth. Now, I'm not saying this to Trump, but I could never understand this. Somebody was hated so universally and was sticking up for principles of God so much that when they died, they would not bury them, and they gave gifts to one another. And I'm thinking, what? And it wasn't until Trump I saw that possible. Okay, so I'm not saying it's him, but it's the first time it's possible that somebody go, oh, okay. But after 3.5 days, the breath of life from God comes into them, and they stood on their feet, and great fear fell upon those who were watching them. And they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, come up here. And they went up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies watched them. And in that hour, there was a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city fell. 7,000 people were killed in the earthquake, and the rest was terrified, and blah, blah, blah. And that's only the second woe was passed. But the point I'm getting at here is Jesus warns that if you follow me, you will be persecuted. I mean, it killed him. All right, so. And a lot of religions, Christian sects say, well, he was supposed to die for our sins, so of course he was supposed to die. And no. I think that at any time the man Jesus could have overruled what was going on and say, like, no, I want nothing to do with this. And who knows how many times the Spirit of Christ was involved in an individual who backed out or didn't follow. And this is why I really like the man Jesus, because the man Jesus had to go along with this. And a lot of the problems with some of these spirituality laying on, like, well, it was really God inside him. He had no choice. And it takes away from the grandeur of this. God uses humans as much or as little as they would like to go along with him. And in the case of the man Jesus, he gave it the whole 9 yards. And God used the whole 9 yards. And the same thing I'm saying with Trump, who is not Jesus. Lest anybody try to read crap into what I'm saying. But it's a person who has a lot of power and position, gave over to God to be used, and it's his own sin a lot of time that gets in the way. So as much as he can give to God to use, God will use. And I've always said that it's Trump's his own his own ego, like the sin ego, like we all have, is what really is his worst enemy in this, because in terms of the enemies outside, he seems to have some kind of a boomerang blessing, as I call it. But Jesus said in Luke, if anyone wishes to come after me, follow him, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it in the big picture sense. For what has a man profited if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? A lot of times they have the word soul in there. Soul and life is interchangeable. I don't get into those little details. It applies both, physically and spiritually. For those whoever are ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes into his glory, and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. But I say to you truthfully, there are some who are standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God. Another mysterious sentence. Not going to go into it because it's not the point of this. So why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because there is a disservice being done by people, and I'm on the internet. I read internet stuff. The TV media is already completely taken over, except for a handful of people. Tuckler's doing a great job. But there is a sense of either go with this, bow down. Notice the bowing just started. And anybody who has studied any of this stuff with any kind of an eye or an ear had to set up and take notice. These people are being asked to kneel to the spirit of the mob. That's what it is. And the spirit of the mob gets adulation from the submission and kneeling from the spirit within, who is the spirit of the mob, which is Satan, demons, whatever. And we're seeing that it's going to get worse, right? Q was a LARP, right? It allowed people to sit back and relax and go, it's going to be fine. So now it's not being fine. What's going to happen? You're going to get nervous, upset. Oh, no, I thought it was okay. What am I going to do? That was the point. That was the point. The point was to do the same thing that it was done to the people back when Trump was going to lose by 90%, 98% chance of him losing. All these things, people were for sure. They made him into, Hitler incarnated. He's going to lose. He's absolutely going to. And then he won. And people were crying and screaming in the street. I can't believe he won. Oh, we're laughing at them. Snowflakes and all this stuff like this. This is the emotional programming and punishment that they got at that time purposely. Now, if she would have won, fine, but it serves a purpose. This of what's the word? Cognitive dissonance has a purpose where when that hits you, it makes you mind controllable. So at that point, these people are like, what are we going to do? What do we do? Do what we say and follow us. Okay. Well, the term is coming up now. What happens when, they want a war. They want a revolution. They want to have people fighting in the streets so they could use the military and stuff to get them. I mentioned back earlier, months ago, that they have to separate the people from the military/police and Trump. Because if they all stay united, they can't win. But they want to separate them. And so we have to really, really be careful and cautious here. Make your stand, but make it a solid stand for the righteous reasons. You want to protect your house or find business, fine. Don't go out and join roaming bands of vigilantes. You're just playing into the devil's hand, both personally and politically. This is what we're being set up for, and we can get through it. First off, it's not absolutely for sure the end times, right? It's the end times cycle. Depending on what happens is whether or not it escalates downward into an end times, or if there is a revival and a change and it cycles up for another go at it at the golden age and then cycle down again. In fact, some people have said that with the 1,000-year reign of Christ, if you get into millennialism, that could be what comes after this mess when he comes. I don't know. Again, I don't want to get those answers. I can't answer those questions, but I can answer what's going on right now and what do we need to do right now. With 100% surety on my part, I know exactly what to do at this point, is every single day you wake up and you stay in God's energies and graces throughout the day, because throughout the day, whatever comes up, and I wish I had this verse handy, Jesus says, don't, in those days when they persecute you, maybe it says it here in Revelation. No, in Jesus, Matthew, toward the ends. Mm-hmm. No, I can't find it right now. I'm going to waste time. But I'm just going to paraphrase from my memory. Because at that time, you don't know what to say. It'll be given to you when you're brought to make an account and make it a stay. So when you're accosted by the mob, or when you're accosted by the political ramifications or persecutions, at that moment, the Spirit will give you words to say. It doesn't mean it's not a go get out of jail free card, but it's the right thing to say at that time, and you will be doing your piece for it. Yeah, I'm looking here. Anita is saying a man of boomerang blessings would be described as many biblical characters, as well as Moses, Jacob, and David come to mind. Another thing, Anita is saying, keep under the cloud. Don't go out from the safety of the cloud, referring to the cloud of God. And think about when the Sodom and Gomorrah, which is like, I don't know what they could do that's worse than what's going on now. I mean, we got all kinds of technology to help things get even worse. But, God is incredibly fair and incredibly mercy. So I'm not worried about God doing the wrong thing to someone, not or whatever. I'm not worried about someone getting their oats, nor am I worried about an innocent person being misunderstood by God. None of it has to worry about that. What I have to worry about is myself and my reasons, what I need to do at any given time, and Jesus has all the answers. You look at read the Beatitudes, an absolutely incredible sense of how do you live as a person? What's the principles that Jesus is teaching? Fantastic stuff. It's the greatest. I don't know what you want to call it. The Sermon on the Mount, the greatest piece a human has ever uttered. It's fantastic. And a lot of scholars argue, well, actually, he never said it in one spot. These are pieced together from various speeches. Who cares? They're Jesus' words. Whether or not they're pieced together from various things, or this is actually written down. Who cares? Again, how many heads of opinion? Heads of an angel are on pinhead. So this is what we need to be doing, not worrying about these other things. And as we watch and get totally absorbed in the news and watching the news media, all these people died from COVID. Oh, more deaths. Well, all right, that's done now. Yeah, we had to stay in the house or you're killing grandma. Well, unless you're protesting. In fact, if you go on Facebook, there's a great picture that someone posted. Took a screenshot. I'm going to see if I can find it real quick while I'm talking here, so that I could read it rather than all right, just give me a second. I'm almost there. Okay, I don't see it. Oh, well, here's one. This is not the one I'm talking about. Social gatherings are limited up to 12 people. Protest up to 100. Because it's, I can't. Maybe I put it in my other one. It's a pain in the ass using Facebook. I really don't like it. Yeah, here it is. Health experts say you should still close your business and stay indoors unless it's to protest. Well, many things are definitely not funny now, but the irony should let you know. The 51st Massachusetts Regiment Memorial was vandalized by Black Lives Matter. They wrote all over it. And the 54th Massachusetts Regiment was black. This is the Maoist cultural revolution. All cultural icons, history, all has to be erased for the new regime to take in. And if you are thinking that Black Lives Matter, they don't matter. It's an excuse to get black workers to go out and it at best be a front for the protest, the looters behind the scenes, or help at worst help with the protests. This is what it's all about. Black lives don't matter. It is only the lives that matter are those that support the narrative. And when the narrative shifts, then they no longer matter, whatever they are. That is what happened in China with the Mao Zedong revolution, when you have pictures of kids shooting their parents in the head as they pledge allegiance to the new system. This is what is happening right now. And what we're to do is not to try and solve this problem, not to try and come up with a solution to this problem to restore America and, constitutional America and the good old days or whatever. That's not what we're supposed to do. Now, whether or not that happens or not is a different question. What we're supposed to do now is learn and use the principles that Jesus and live them out, because A, that will become huge spiritual growth for us, and B, that collective can actually help things as it is now. Or if it goes down into the end times, and it is the end times, finally, the latter days, the last cycle, by doing those things, you're still doing the greatest service to the world as well as yourself. That is all what has to happen. We can't control what's going on out there. We can control what's going on in here. And I would say that we can't even control that, but for God who lives within, and why I follow Jesus' principles. And I'm telling you, if you say to God, I want you to save me and help my life, and you want to sign on to Jesus' principles and Jesus' salvation through his spirit and principles, I'm telling you, it does great stuff. I mean, the world's all around. There's people all around who have changed their lives, been helped, whatever. And there's people who've been helped through terrible times into and through death. And they didn't get healed, but they found peace. And we're all going to die anyway, and we're all going to go over there anyway. So let's go out there, and the highest best note means that we go into a higher, better, best scenario. I did a whole work on, and it's available through a website somewhere, on the kingdom of heaven. That it's not about salvation in terms of heaven or hell. It's about quality of life after life, which is going to vary on as far as your heart and how you've done. Giving out rewards, if you will, if you want to look at it in that terms. It's not that you're trying to do the best rewards. It's like getting yourself situated for the best, a long-term goal rather than short-term gratification. We're working on, instead of the short-term gratification of apparently getting out of a bad situation with this kneeling and whatnot that's going on, you take the high road from it, and it may mean short-term punishment or pain or depravity, but it's going to be a long-term leap on this stuff. Believe me, the last person you got to worry about rewarding your efforts is God. What God does When you give something to God, he repays it. Remember the Bible says it, Jesus says it, with the basket pushed down, running over, meaning he's not stingy on repaying. Well, I gave you you gave me a bushel of grain. I'm going to give you a bushel back and make sure it's even, nothing hanging over. God just pours it in, running over, pushes it down here. Thank you. That's the last thing you got to worry about, is God making your sacrifice that you may do, making it good for you and for others around you. For when we stand there and look at what we've done in our lives and how many people we've helped people, it's going to be overwhelmingly amazing. And I keep thinking of two things. One, if you've ever watched the Christmas Carol, I prefer the one that's called Scrooge from 1951. I like that one better. The actors and the portrayal and all, I think it's really good. Jacob Marley comes back to see Scrooge, and he takes him out to the window at the end, and he says, you know, there's all these ghosts, these millionaire ghosts who are shoveling money and coins and paper, trying to give this homeless girl, a mother with her child who can't eat. They're sitting in a homeless out on the street. They're trying to shovel money and trying to help her now, and they can't. But Scrooge, or we can do things here. We're alive, and it's the time of salvation now. We can do things, and we can help people, and we can do that. And all we need to do is follow Jesus' principles. That's it. It's hard only because of the temptations of the world. You want to have 5 big screen TVs? Join in on a looting spree, and you got them. You want to have peace that passes all understandings and keeps your heart and mind? That's what comes from God and through Jesus. And that's what I am really encouraging people to do today. And I pray to God for mercy and for help and healing in this time. Bring love and bring a healing and revival. I mean, that's my prayer. I want it. It would be so wonderful to live the rest of my life out and seeing that happen. And even if Jesus does return and it is the end times and he comes, I mean, I want to see that. I want to then do as fine as if I end up dying before I see that, and if we in service to God, it's all good. It's all good. Just that if you're doing the right things, no matter what happens, good or bad, it's all good. All right, I'm going to go, and these things are uploaded to YouTube after the fact, and it ends up being a day after on BitChute. A shout out to those who are on BitChute. It's a good system. It's fighting against the YouTube censorship. And I like Spreaker because I could do the audio. I'm kind of an audio guy. I don't need to see my face in the video when I'm talking. But it's also easy to listen on YouTube for some people, so that's why I put it up there without just the audio. So, alrighty, we'll see you next time. Thanks for the people in the chat room. Milton, Enid, Kanita. Can't scroll anymore, so have a good night. God bless you. And we'll see you again.
Retell your timeless truths. Oh, it's your word. Feet to Fire is a production of IPS Media Works on the OnSig Radio network of stations.